Today, we're talking more about the Jets and the Dolphins game from yesterday at MetLife Stadium. We'll get into whose stock went up, whose stock went down, some of the big takeaways from the game, and we hopefully will look ahead to the return of Zach Wilson playing quarterback for the New York Jets for these final 7 games of the year. My guest today is going to be Will Parkinson from Turn on the Jets. But first, I got a new sponsor I want to tell you about because support for the Jake Asman Show is now brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best men's below-the-waist grooming champions of the world. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. They sent me mine, and let me tell you, it is real, and it is spectacular. You heard that right. The 4.0 joined the over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the promo code Asman at manscaped.com. You'll see the info down below. It's also in the description. If you want to support this channel, help support Manscaped, get 20% off. Use my promo code Asman. With that being said, let's talk New York Jets football. And to do that, we bring on our guy, Will Parkinson from turnonthejets.com. Will, you were at MetLife Stadium yesterday. You've been there a lot this year, and you've seen, a lot of losses. Let's start with just your biggest takeaways from this one. Obviously, the Jets were in the game. They didn't get blown out, but at the end of the day, this team loses again, and now the Jets are 2-8.
Yeah, it's one of those games that's a bit frustrating. I felt like the Jets lost that game more than Miami won. Obviously, Miami had a lot of expectations coming into the year. They've not looked good. They've looked better of late. I think they've won 3 in a row. They beat Baltimore, but the Jets, between the 2 missed field goals, the third one that they took to delay a game, which was on purpose. I know people had a hard time understanding that. If you were at the game, you could see Saleh saying, take a safety. Take a delay a game there so they would punt. But that's 9 missed points, and then driving down, Joe Flacco, gets hit on miscommunication, fumble. So the Jets probably miss out between 9 and 16 points. And then a bunch of, the roughing the passer, the holding call. It felt like a death of a million slow cuts. Like I thought they were going to win the game. It's 14-14. Jets had all the momentum after that big Elijah Moore touchdown, and it kind of just all died after that. It's a little frustrating. Michael Carter getting hurt. So a lot kind of happened yesterday. But overall, I think the fan base as a whole, and I can't speak for everybody, but the people I interact with as much as possible, there's just the weird divide of fans rooting for losing still and saying the season doesn't matter and they're too good for rooting for anyone other than Zach. And it's all about draft picks, which has not worked well over the last, it's what we did with Sam for the last 3 years. And then there's the other half of the fan base that wants to win. So yesterday was just frustrating. It felt like the Jets, Miami's a fine team and they're going to figure it out. They'll probably finish somewhere in that 7 to 9 win mark, just because of how bad both the Jets are and some of the other teams in the AFC. But overall, I just think the Jets kind of shot themselves in the foot. And yes, they're competitive, but, they're still making mistakes that just can't happen. And when you're not a great team, leaving points on the board consistently, whether it be special teams or turnovers, the Jets I don't know that they've gone a game all year without a turnover. I have to check that stat, but I'm pretty positive they have not gone a game without a turnover. So that needs to change. But other than that, it's just frustrating to watch the Jets, who did some good things yesterday, and I'm sure we'll get into some of the young guys, but overall, you got to win that game. It's a game at home against a 3-win team. And Joe Flacco or not, they were in that game. So,
no doubt. And you just look at this team. I want to go and specifically talk about the defense, and then we'll get to the offense. Like the defense to me yesterday, they weren't great. They obviously were not inept. It was, definitely progress from what we've seen, but still, this was a game where, I agree with what Robert Saleh said afterwards. This was a game where the Jets lost. Like 90% of games in the NFL, you lose rather than win. And this to me was a game they lost because of the stupid penalties. I mean, the one on John Franklin Myers for the roughing the passer, that just cannot happen, even if you think it's a little ticky-tacky. He did hit him a little late. And then just like the opening drive, the tackling right off the jump. That opening drive was pathetic, how bad the Jets tackled, especially around the goal line. They could have held Miami to a field goal. Instead, they score a touchdown. So it just seems like there are still just things missing from this team. And I get it defensively, at most positions, it's expansion level as far as the talent, a lot of it due to injuries and just, the fact that this team was not that talented coming into the year. but it's frustrating because, yeah, better draft pick, but you want to win games, man. Like winning games is how you build your team. It's how you establish a culture. And like seeing this team at 2-8, they should be a little better than that. I don't think that's crazy to say. And yesterday was frustrating because it was a game they very easily could have won if they just corrected, some self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah, I think, I said it going into the year, I thought they were going to go 7-10. Probably optimistic of me, to be honest. It's obviously, I thought Zach was going to play the whole year. I didn't know Carl Lawson was going to, tear his Achilles and things of that nature. Obviously, all these things add up. But yeah, yesterday was frustrating. I don't know. There was just weird vibe. I'm sick of, I go to MetLife every weekend, obviously, both as a fan and covering the team. And
thoughts and prayers.
It's just, I'm sick of other teams taking over the stadium and hearing, let's go Dolphins, or, go Bills, go at the end of every divisional game, or the Pats fans taking over this. And it's not because the Jets fans aren't loyal. They're some of the most loyal fans. And, the stadium was pretty packed yesterday. Quite frankly, I was actually kind of surprised. It was, I would say, maybe 75-80% full, which at this time of the year, a 2-7 versus a 3-7 game, you wouldn't expect. And yeah, there was more Jets fans than Miami fans, but the upper deck, which I sit in the cheap seats. I like to be able to see the field. Hearing "Go Dolphins, go!" and at the end of the games, it gets tiring, man. And there's no way it wears on you. It wears on the fans. It wears on players, front offices, and maybe, obviously they beat the Bengals and Titans, which is still crazy to think about. But they also lost games to Carolina, who is not very good. Even with all the hoopla around Cam, which is really cool and fun to watch, they still lost yesterday at home. They still got smoked by Denver, who's a very average team. They still, New England losses don't look quite as bad now as I thought they might have. But, Miami was 3-7 on the road. Miami, traveling cold New York weather, coming off a Thursday night high, and it's like they march right down the field. And again, there was positives yesterday, but the silver lining thing of every week of, ooh, well, at least this guy did this. Like in the NFL and in football, it's not like other sports to me where baseball, I think baseball fans, obviously me and you talk with the Yankees all the time, but the end of 2016, getting some of these guys ready to go and kind of clearing house and resetting, that stuff can work because you're not putting your body on the line in such a short career span. You can have time to develop guys. But in football, these veterans want to win. CJ Mosley or, even Quinnen Williams at this point in his career in year 4 and guys like that, they want to win, or year 3, whatever. They want to win right now because, your career only lasts so long. And it's just hard to continue to sell, next year we have draft picks. And like right now it looks great. They have like 25, they have 2, 5, 34 34 and 43 in the draft. Like that's great, right? Are they going to hit on all those guys? Are we sure they are? Like, what have they shown that they're going to hit on 3 or 4 top tier picks? And at the same time, I'm not worrying about draft order in week 10 or week 11 because Seattle could still win 3 or 4 more games and the Jets could still win 3 or 4 more games and they pick 10 and 12. So it's frustrating because there's so much different stuff going on. Some people rooting for them. Some people, Zach's not playing. We're not. I don't know. It's just, I'm tired. I'm going on a little bit of a tirade right now, but it's just the emotions and the discourse on social media and, within the Jets kind of organization is a little frustrating, at least for myself at the moment.
Yeah, I want to put that to bed as well, just because I don't think the Jets are in a position where losing benefits them. I just don't. They have the quarterback who we need to see, hopefully, and we'll get to Zach Wilson here in a moment, hopefully play well these final 7 games to salvage this season, so to speak, and give us something to point to as far as the young core of this team developing going into 2022. But like the draft pick stuff to me is like, it's nonsense. It really is, because the reality is, like, if Joe Douglas is good at his job, he'll find good players no matter where the Jets are picking. The example being he traded up to get Elijah Vera Tucker at pick 14. He's been one of the best rookies in the NFL. Like, this year's draft class has been pretty good. And it's not like the Jets, hit on all their picks just because they were picking near the top. They were creative and smart with their selections. And, I just think, even though Zach's not playing and Flacco's playing, who cares? Lou's got a better pick. Like, at some point it has to be about winning games, developing a foundation, a culture, learning how to win. And the losses that continue to pile up, like, it's not a good thing that you keep losing and have to keep being the butt of jokes. Like, yeah, cool. Right now the Jets have the 2nd and the 5th overall pick, but is that really going to be the case by the time we get to, week 18? Like, I still think Seattle wins a few more games. I still think the Jets, as bad as it looks, I still think with their schedule, they're not finishing 2-15. They're going to win some more games. So I just think we got to stop talking about draft picks and draft positioning and focus on this team hopefully getting better and winning games, because they got to learn how to win if they're ever going to do anything going into 2022. The more games you win this year, like the less of a leap you have to potentially try and take to get back to the playoffs in 2022.
Yeah, and I don't think, obviously the 2020 draft is still, there's a lot left to be desired, just based on, it's been obviously difficult for Becton and Mims specifically. Piron's a kind of a dud, and, there's a couple other guys. Braden Mann's probably the worst punter in football, and I don't get this love fest with Braden Mann. If I see it one more time on my Twitter timeline, like, you're getting blocked. I can't stand it. Like yesterday, there was 2 different punts that literally went 30 yards, and like, you're not. Like, we're in the NFL, and the Jets just cut a really good punter. And I know it doesn't matter, but unfortunately, like, the Jets' offense is fine. They can use LDT looked okay yesterday at right guard. He was better than what we've seen from GVR, but they're missing Mekhi Becton, obviously, in the run game specifically. It just, that 2020 class, Bryce Hall looks good, but drafting wise, I'm not really concerned with it's so much the draft. That's why it's hard for me to get like overly worked up about picks right now, because I have some faith in Douglas, and it looks like this 2021 class is pretty damn good. Obviously, Zach is the end all be all of kind of the Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh regime, but it's the free agency signings. That's what's really is starting to really irk me a little bit. Is looking back at all of these signings over the last 2 years, they're either really high risk with the lowest of low floors. You look at, a Pierre Desir, Jared Davis, guys of that nature, who, have obviously not worked out over the last couple of years. And then you look at other positions where the Jets spent big money. Carl Lawson, as great as he was in camp, I loved watching Carl Lawson every day in camp. It was spectacular. Has been injured pretty much every year of his career, and that's why he was, on the market for the price he was, because as good as he is, he's generally usually hurt. Corey Davis is pretty clearly a number 2, which is okay. But, against teams that play a ton of man, which is pretty much their whole division, he's been not very good. And it's not to say Corey Davis is not a good football player. He is, but, you look at it, and New England really shut him down, clamps pretty quickly. Miami yesterday, he got rolled up on one early in the game, and I feel like that probably maybe was a little bit of the reason. But the Jets clearly favored some other guys in that pass game that could get open versus man coverage at a better rate. So that's the one place where Joe Douglas, I think, needs to take a good amount of heat. Is free agency it's been ugly, and that's why this roster is the way it is. Because I said this the other day, I think the Jets. I would love to see the Jets use rounds 4 through 7 in a manner to acquire veterans with maybe bigger salaries. You look at what the Niners did, or what Jets fans would, have seen in the past of Santonio Holmes, to Brandon Edwards, Antonio Cromartie, to bring in and really bolster that team with top end talent. You have the cap space to do so. I just feel like, I don't know. You look at that roster and it's all the young guys, which is great. And again, I sound really negative this morning, and I apologize. Usually I'm really positive, but you got to have some veterans that are impact players that make plays on a daily basis. That's why teams like New England, or Miami last year, and Buffalo, is they made good quality signings. They balanced that with their young talent, which continued to take leaps. They're well coached, and they win football games. Miami was 1-7, and all of a sudden they're 4-7, and they're 1 or 2 games away from being in that playoff picture again, with a limited quarterback and a really bad offensive line, because they have other really good veterans. So there needs to be some change, and it can't just all be about the young guys, which is great. I know we'll get to Elijah and some of those guys in a moment.
You're right. And, just to follow up on your point there, it's if you're breaking down Douglas, he's done a good job on the draft overall. He's done a really good job. The best asset he's done is he's been excellent in trades. Like, the Jets have basically won every trade that Joe Douglas has made, including Jet fans. How nice was it to see Jamal Adams cost his team a game yesterday with a pass interference penalty? So trades have been really good. Even like waiver wire pickups, like John Franklin Myers has worked out for this team.
Yeah,
like
Bryce Huff, undrafted guys too. Bryce Huff, or I'm trying to think if there's someone else off the top of my head that I can't. Who am I missing? There's one other guy on the defensive line, or Foley was round 6, or like even guys like that, Michael Carter, like in the draft and undrafted free agency waiver wires. Like, yeah, it's all been good. Even last year, like Pat Elflein came in, and he's not very good, but like he was an upgrade for 3 or 4 games. Or Alex Lewis was a good waiver wire pickup for like what it was, like it's the freaking free agency. Other than George Fant, by the way, and Morgan Moses have been
good.
Those been probably his best signings, right? It has to be.
Yeah, and like so like my point would be like free agency hasn't been a strength for Douglas overall, but like the other things have. And I hate telling Jet fans to be more patient, but unfortunately, like, we waited 10 years to see the playoffs and it's the longest drought in the NFL. But for Douglas, it's like you could point to some of the young players, they just don't have enough of them because like this team just does not have enough talent. Like I'm watching this defense yesterday, Will, and like you go through like who was out there playing for this team. Like you have Ashton Davis, who's a 3rd-round pick, Bryce Hall is a 5th-round pick, Elijah Riley, who was signed last week, Isaiah Dunn, who's an undrafted free agent, Michael Carter, who's a rookie. You have a bunch of dudes in that secondary like Marcus May and LaMarcus Joyner who are hurt. Like they had an expansion level safeties out there yesterday. They have expansion level linebackers. So it's like they don't have enough talent right now. And unfortunately, like we have to just hope that they could continue to add to it because like it's not good enough to sustain a bunch of wins in the NFL given the limitations they have on this roster.
Yeah, it's the tough part too is that like the impatience, and I'm sure I sound super impatient today. And again, I'm usually super positive, and I'm sure I'll be positive again by Wednesday, and I'm going to pick them against Houston, I'm sure. And it's just there's a couple of signings that have worked out. Again, Sheldon Rankins has looked good. George Fant has really kind of, for the money he's being paid, is a good deal. And Morgan Moses was a bargain. And it's kind of ignoring those positions that everyone kind of knew was an issue. And you can't fix everything in one offseason, but Joe Douglas is in offseason 3,
right.
If we're being truly honest. So, tight end's been an issue for a long time, and it's been clearly ignored. The kicking game, and I cannot stand the Jason Myers thing because Jason Myers is also not good anymore. So kicking fluctuates all the time, right? But going into this year and the whole Douglas era pretty much, and McCagnon for whatever, has been since Nick Folk and Jason Myers has been bad kicking wise. Like they cost themselves between 6 and 9 points a week. And that's really, Amendola is the worst rated kicker in football, and they're not a good
horrible.
team.
He should have been cut weeks ago. It's infuriating.
Look, he's super handsome, good dude. He's jacked. He was a fan favorite in camp, but he's not very good. And kicking's really important. You watch these good. Look at the Ravens, right? People had said, like Connor Rogers said the other day, if Justin Tucker was in today's draft, he would go in the second, like a high 2nd-round pick for a kicker. Like that's how important kickers could be, right? So. Safety was a deep position. I'll give them a break there. I don't think they expected Ashton Davis to be hurt, LaMarcus Joyner, and Marcus May all be hurt at different points. But it's just certain positions. I feel like they've kind of right guard. Until 2 weeks ago they ignored, and they're really important spots. They might not be quarterback or edge, but if the Jets had a better tight end, do you not feel like Zach Wilson's life would be a little bit easier every single week? The offense, as good as it's been, look, 4 quarterbacks this year thrown for 290 plus, which is nuts. But at the same time, they don't score a ton of points. They just they put up yards. They're good, but they don't finish drives well, which is a young team. Then they miss field goals, right? Yesterday, if they just hit those 2 field goals, I'll give them one of the 250 whatever yarders just because it is a difficult kick. That game's 24-23, even including the turnover. And that's a whole different ball game than Miami when they were driving at the end of the game for 9 minutes, which was really impressive by Miami, by the way, with a bad offensive line. I'll give them a ton of credit. Their offensive line's been bad. Tua struggled, and they were able to put together a really mature, good end of they won that game at the end of the game. But it was 21-14. If that game's 21-17, now the Jets can go, we can play for 3. And now Miami's thinking a little differently. They can give themselves a chance with a timeout or 2, 2 minutes left. That's just a little stuff. I know we're nitpicking, but when you're a good team, you put yourselves in a good position to every single game you have a chance to win the game with 3 or 4 minutes left to go.
Yeah, you're totally right. And yesterday, it's like the classic example of you had 2 missed field goals. One of them was from 50 plus, but the 40-yarder was a joke that Amendola continues to shank. And then you have the turnover in the red zone where Flacco gets blindsided, fumbles the ball. That's at least 3 points that you just
that veteran experience to handle the blitz.
It's just brutal. Flacco, the way the CB, we'll talk about the offense here and get to, Elijah Moore and Michael Carter, but the way the CBS announcers, and I made this point in my post-game video yesterday, Will, you were at the game, so I don't know if you heard any of the commentary, but the way the CBS announcers were talking about Joe Flacco, it was as if the Jets were starting Joe Montana yesterday. It was insane. The praise, oh, he knows what he's doing with the blitz, and they needed the veteran. This was the right move. And I'm like, guys, the Jets scored 17 points, and the last 3 came in like garbage time when they needed a touchdown, and they ended up just settling.
They didn't handle that correctly.
No.
They got in a field goal position, and they don't trust their kicker enough that they would have had yes, they had to recover the onside kick, and they weren't going to anyways, and it's impossible in today's NFL, which is a huge flaw in the rules, but that's a whole nother discussion. But there was a 48 seconds or 50 seconds left. They're on the 40 or 35-yard line with 1 timeout left. And then they proceed to run 3 plays over the middle. Spike called the timeout and then throw another play without kicking the field goal. And now there's only 18 seconds left. And you would have literally had 1 play to throw a Hail Mary to even tie the game. So that's the stuff. And I'll give that coaching staff a break all day long on a lot of stuff because I think they're super young. LaFleur has been fantastic. I have nothing but good things. I've been on the LaFleur high for a long time, and I was kind of defending him for a long time where people were like, oh, the locker room doesn't like him. But
nonsense.
They're nonsense, dude. He's had Flacco at age 45, Josh Johnson at age 70, Zach Wilson and Mike White be efficient, legit passers in the NFL, while missing key pieces of the offense, whatever. But it's just, you got to handle the staff's got to learn, and they will. And I have confidence in that. But the stuff yesterday was just one of those games where the scoreboard doesn't really tell the whole story. It kind of felt like that Carolina game just a little bit in terms of oh, they lost 19-14. Zach put up some good stats. We got some good stuff, but there's more to it. And they need top tier talent. And they also need to continue to add depth. That's the other thing I think we don't talk about enough with the Jets is there's very few positions of depth where if one guy goes down, it's oh, it's over. If CJ Mosley doesn't play next week, he should, but he definitely got a concussion. There's no way. If you watch that play in person, he got blindsided by Sherrod Neesman, but his own guy. But if CJ Mosley doesn't play, that linebacker core is Jared Davis and Quincy Williams. And you can talk about Houston better than anybody. Tyrod Taylor's been in the league long enough. He'll figure it out. That's how, you got to just be, I don't know, you got to keep adding. And the Jets are they'll get there, but it's hard to be patient, man. It is. I can only imagine how fans feel that are just throwing stuff at the TV every week.
Yeah, it's brutal. And you outlined it at the beginning going to the game. It is a pain in the ass to get to MetLife Stadium. You miss out on an entire day of football to watch a bad team that right now is bereft of talent at so many different positions. And Joe Flacco's the quarterback out there. So it's not even you could point to, see Zach Wilson and have hope that you're watching your guy play. So that's why, as we kind of change gears here, Will, these last 7 games, hopefully Zach's playing this week against the Texans right here in town. Because believe me, the last thing I want to do is go and watch Tyrod Taylor versus Joe Flacco on Sunday here at NRG. So I think Zach Wilson should be back and certainly will be back. But I do want to get to a couple of positives from yesterday because we've spent most of this video just talking about the loss and the negatives, and certainly that's the story. But there were some things to point to that I think if you're a Jet fan, you at least could hold your head up high. And to me, the biggest thing is Elijah Moore is a star. The Jets have gotten that pick right. We knew they got it right at the time. It took a little bit because of, you're playing a rookie quarterback, and Elijah Moore was a rookie as well, and LaFleur was a first-time OC. But what we have seen from Moore the last 5 games, 5 touchdowns. Yesterday has the most receiving yards by a Jet rookie since Lavernius Coles in the year 2000. Elijah Moore is quickly becoming this team's number 1 option. And if he becomes their number 1, everyone else kind of gets slotted probably where they should be, right? Corey Davis more of a 2 than a 1, and we're starting to really see that. But talk about Moore because you saw it in person. This guy has a chance to be one of the best playmakers the Jets have had in years.
Yeah, so I did a Spaces with me, DJ, and then a couple of the Dolphins writers on Thursday, and they were kind of talking about where do you see the Jets, what matchups do the Jets have, over Miami, what favorable matchups, and obviously it was the D line versus their offensive line, just based on history. But the biggest matchup, I was Crowder and Elijah Moore, and we'll talk about obviously Elijah Moore because he's more exciting for the future. But these Dolphins corners are really, really good. And Javon Holland's turning into a hell of a pick at safety. That's one of the things they've gotten right. But Elijah had a very favorable matchup. Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, he's a terrible matchup for them. All that speed, quickness, they can't really get their hands on him and be physical. And they play a ton of man coverage. The Jets targeted Elijah early and often. They used him in different formations, different motions. There's a key emphasis. I think he had 11 targets yesterday. I think it's 18 for I want to say it's like 334 and 4 touchdowns over the last few weeks, which is fantastic. Obviously, obviously to see, and he's special, man. I talked to you, I came on your show, I think maybe like first or second week of camp. And you're like, who's standing out? I'm like, Elijah's been fantastic. And like we saw it's not just that the Jets corners weren't good. I know there was that whole thing of, oh, well, the Jets corners aren't good. How good is Elijah Moore really? Like Bryce Hall's looked pretty damn good against everybody else. So it's not like he was, playing a bunch of scrubs in practice. And once he got himself settled, he got over the thigh injury, the concussion early. Got comfortable. He looks really good. That touchdown's awesome. It's awesome to see. And it's not just that, it's the 20-yard dig route, or it's the, out, and it's like getting him involved in different ways. And he's learning. You can even see the difference in maybe the Bengals game, whereas the first game, I felt like they really tried to kind of get him involved a little bit. He's like, you couldn't see that full confidence. You saw a little bit of it, but he's brimming with confidence now. And as you mentioned, I think the Jets, I still would like to see them add a receiver with that second first-round pick, which is, I know,
or at least one,
high. And one of those first 4 picks, Garrett Wilson, Elijah, and Corey Davis would be a hell of a combo. And then Denzel Mims is your 4, or re-signing Crowder or whatever. But you can tell, like, he's the Jets 1 right now. And I think he's pretty much established himself as the 1 going forward, which, again, that's the way it should be, I think. I think it took till week 11 for him to really establish himself as that. But that's okay. I think that's, discovering you have a number 1 receiver, which the Jets have not had since, I guess, Brandon Marshall, right, and Decker for that little time period. And before then, it's been a long time. He's a different type of receiver than Jets fans, I think, are accustomed to over the years. The number 1 receivers of, a Keyshawn into, there's the Braylon Edwards, Santonio Holmes, who are more like bigger, Santonio Holmes not as much, but bigger bodied guys. And Lavernius, he's more in that Lavernius Cole, Santana Moss mold, where like just really good quickness, speed, ability, route running. And again, I was really impressed with Elijah yesterday. I thought him, and then, Bryce Hall on the other side, a guy that, probably would have been a late first, early second round pick if he doesn't get hurt in that, that dislocated ankle, which was, it takes a long time to get over. And I thought he showed flashes last year. I wasn't like overly impressed. I was just like, okay, like I'm out. Maybe he's a CB2, CB3 going forward. Mm-hmm. I don't see why he couldn't be their CB1 going forward, especially in a scheme that kind of protects their corners. When the Jets are really humming, with Lawson and Huff and that whole D-line playing the way it's supposed to. And when they add other talent, like Bryce Hall and Elijah Moore being like legit wide receiver 1, CB1 guys on either side of the ball is really important. Like that, if you hit on quarterback, which, obviously, again, we'll have to see obviously what happens, but I still believe Zach is, will be the guy. And you've hit on now on left tackle, left guard, edge, corner, and receiver. Like all of a sudden now the roster starts to look a lot better, and you start to go, okay, now we can really address top tier talent. So I was really impressed with Elijah yesterday. I was impressed with Bryce Hall. I thought John Franklin Myers minus the penalty was really good yesterday. Quinnen Williams was awesome yesterday. Ashton Davis had a really good game. I know he had the touchdown from, he took a bad angle on, but that was Isaiah Dunn getting cooked on a double move, very similar to what Eccles got cooked on last week. So on the TV side, it looked like it was all Ashton Davis. It actually wasn't. Yep. Ashton wasn't great on that play either, by the way. I'm not totally expelling him, but Ashton's forced 4 turnovers in 4 starts. The Jets, he might not be the best safety of all time, but if you put someone serviceable next to him, that's more discipline.
He's also not supposed to be playing as much as he is because of all
like he's playing. He's like their superstar safety right now, and like he's probably supposed to be like a long-term safety number 2, which as a 3rd-round pick is a good, like that's fine. Like the Jets need more of that, of guys that are like competent. But you saw a lot of the young guys play well yesterday. Again, Quinnen was really good. JFM was really good. Elijah was really good. Bryce Hall. There's some other pieces, obviously, that need to kind of pick up the pace. But to see 4 young guys that are going to be here for the future all performing really well against Miami is a really good defense. They've got a lot of talent, and there are some really good, Jalen Waddle's no joke. Mike Gesicki's really difficult to cover. So, I was really impressed yesterday. And Elijah in person is really, really fun to watch. And if you haven't, I know it sucks to go to MetLife, or a road game, but to watch Elijah in person is worth it, in my opinion.
I'll be doing it on Sunday. I cannot wait to see him in action against the Texans. Now, one guy we haven't mentioned yet, Michael Carter, I think is a really good player. I tweeted this yesterday, Will. I think he's one of the better mid-round.
That was the other name I forgot. I was like trying to think of the fifth guy.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Carter played really well yesterday. And of course, in typical Jet fan luck, he goes down with an injury and then doesn't return. I don't know what his status is. I'm hoping it's nothing, too serious that would keep him out a long time. But you look at this offense going forward. You have Carter as one of your running backs, Vera Tucker, Becton. Then obviously you look on the outside with Elijah Moore. Like, they have some real playmakers here that you could point to and feel good about going forward. But the real question, and let's talk about it now to the 100 people watching us live and the people that, of course, watch after the fact, what are we expecting from Zach Wilson when he returns? Because obviously, if you want to, quote, salvage the Jets season, and it sounds ludicrous right now because I understand the Jet fan is upset, but I'm telling you, if you see Zach Wilson play well these last 7 games, you'll have a totally different outlook on what the season is and what the season has been. It has always been about developing Zach and the young players over the wins and losses. Wins would be nice. Believe me, I'd like to see them win some games here down the stretch, but I could live with them losing if Zach plays well in some of these losses. So what are you expecting from Zach Wilson? The Texans, people are going to say, well, they just beat the Titans. Believe me, as someone who gets paid to talk about the Texans, I had to watch every play of that game. The Titans stunk that game out of the gazoo. Like, Ryan Tannehill had one of the worst quarterback performances I've ever seen. The Texans, I have the stat right in front of me for those who are now anointing the Texans. The Texans had 22 total yards their last 7 drives. That game should not have even been close. So this is a game on Sunday that if the Jets don't win, I'm going to blow a gasket because the Texans are actually a 3-point favorite, believe it or not, in this game on Sunday. But what are you expecting from Zach Wilson when he comes back? Do you think him sitting these last 4 games will ultimately be that blessing in disguise that every Jet fan's hoping?
Yeah, so the one X factor, I guess, is just how the Jets travel. They have not traveled well. They've actually been probably the worst road team in football. That said, other than Houston, who is going to have you tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know how there might be more Jets fans in Houston than there will be Texans fans. I know it's a big hub of New York City imports and stuff like that. But what to expect out of Zach? I guess the best case scenario is you get the last 4 games of Sam's rookie year, kind of spread out over more meaningful games over the last 7 in some variants. Sam was really good those games, and that Packers game, will ever stand out as the reason he'll continue to be a backup or, fringe starter fits type for the next 15 years and wherever he's going to be. I guess my thing for Zach, I think it should help him. I think that the maturity that LaFleur has shown and the growth we've seen from guys like AVT, Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, hopefully, Michael Carter looks, is able to play. He's probably going to be an ankle sprain. We'll see. Ty Johnson's been fine as well, and Tevin Coleman actually looked okay yesterday. But those guys' maturity actually should help Zach more than anything. Elijah Moore, like, settling into his own and really being like a legit good football player right now, that should help Zach, right? It can't hurt him. He just got to continue to take the easy throws as well as the bombs and things like that. Like, he doesn't have, like, if you watch this offensive line, while they've struggled, Miami heats pressure up like nobody in the NFL. They blitz more than anybody. And I still thought Flacco had time yesterday. There was times when he didn't, obviously, but I thought he had time. So if he has time, Zach has the ability to kind of hang in there and make it work. I would love to see Zach throw for somewhere in that 250 to 300-yard mark, maybe 2 touchdowns. Throws a pick, who cares? To me, I'm not really worried about the interceptions as long as they're like within the flow of the game, not like the New England game, obviously, where they got stacked up. If you look at that New England game, the second one, he looked even better. I thought he looked okay in those first 2 drives. And that was a game that kind of was a turning point for the Jets season of, like, the offense started to all of a sudden take off. Again, if you can do a little bit of what Flacco and what Mike White and Josh Johnson did, and then use that natural God-given ability, it's really special. What he did against Tennessee, I think Zach should be fine. I just would like to see him over those 7 games. Give everyone be like, okay, Zach's the guy going forward. We feel pretty damn good about him going forward. And if we continue to develop these other pieces and add other talent, we should be between an 8, a 7 and a 10 win team next year, depending upon variables and schedule and stuff. I think he needs to run the offense. I know I've been watching the comments of run it like Mike White, to an extent, though. I don't want Zach to get away from what makes him really, really good. The balls outside the numbers, pushing the ball downfield, that stuff is really important as well. But taking the checkdowns to running backs, operating the screen game in a positive manner, and stuff like that. Those are the little things. It's also mechanics for me. I think I've brought this up a good amount. When he throws to his right side, it's been way different than throwing to his left side. And if he can just like get back to those like easy mechanics, again, that's the stuff that's really important. The stat line is important as well. But if he bloats up his stats, that'd be fantastic. I'd love to see him kind of correct. He dug himself a pretty big hole of 4 touchdowns, not interceptions. Again, I think Zach's in a good spot where there are some favorable matchups here. Houston's defense just going to sit and cover 2 the entire game. And if Zach, there's no way he hasn't seen that. Like, that's stuff that the Jets should be able to operate pretty well. New Orleans gets pretty badly carved up. I mean, Philly is not good and hung 40 on them. Atlanta hung a bunch of points. You look at Philly as well. Philly's defense is not very good. They just run the ball a ton. There's some favorable matchups here. Again, those teams will be looking at the Jets as favorable matchups, as they should. But I'd expect Zach needs to play pretty well on Sunday. I think this is like this and the Jacksonville game are the 2 easiest matchups on the schedule all year. And injured or not, he's been out now this will be week 5. This is supposed to be maybe a 2 to 3 week injury. If he doesn't play, there's something off to me, because he's now worked out really hard 3 weeks in a row before games. Will be week 3 of practicing, 5 weeks out from an injury that was supposed to take 2 to 4. If the Saleh press conference today has, which will be coming up, I think probably around 12 o'clock, has anything other than Zach starting, there'd be something else going on. But other than that, I expect good things. There's no reason not to, because if other guys that have lesser ability are, doing well, the Jets don't run the ball great, but they ran the ball pretty well yesterday. So let's see. I mean, Sam Darnold carved up the Texans without McCaffrey. So sorry, there's not really many excuses for me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, if Saleh doesn't announce Wilson today, I bet he will on Wednesday or whatnot, or will get leaked out at some point tomorrow. Zach should be back. They have been overly cautious. He's doing the pregame sprints yesterday, which is a good sign in warmups. He should be back. This is not a great Texans defense. This is not going to be like a hostile road environment that he's walking into. And Zach should benefit from LaFleur being up in the booth. His guy John Beck has been around the team now the last 3 weeks. So there's no excuse for Zach. I think the big thing I want to see from a stat perspective is no interceptions. Like, you look at Zach's stats, 4 touchdowns, 9 picks. Well, 4 of those picks came in one game where he just saw ghosts, so to speak, against New England in week 2. Like, if you eliminate that and just look at his numbers, I know you can't, but like that kind of puts things in perspective. That was just hopefully the worst game he ever plays as a pro. So, I'm expecting a quarterback that is confident, knows where to go with the football, can check it down, but at the same time, when the pressure's coming to Joe Flacco, he's not getting away from it. Zach Wilson should be able to escape and still create plays downfield.
I had a question for you. I know it's your show, and I feel like because we both host shows, it's natural. I kind of flip it back on you. Obviously, it's New York, right? And Zach's kind of a polarizing character, just in terms of kind of the visor and the sleeve and the whole bravado and whatever. Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, other than Fields, maybe that fourth quarter, and a little bit of Lawrence in the London game, have been pretty bad, have actually been just as bad as Zach, if not worse. It's crazy to me that Trevor Lawrence, the expectations for him, no one's talking about it. And like he's
been awful. Hey, Jet fans, listen up. Trevor Lawrence has sucked this year. You don't want to hear it, though, because you only focus on the Jets and think everything they do is the worst thing ever. And believe me, I'll shit on the Jets as much as anyone. They're 2-8, but you just got me fired up, because
I know
no one talks about Trevor Lawrence because he's in Jacksonville and there are 7 fans that root for the Jaguars. He's been terrible. I'm not making excuses for Zach, but Zach's played 5 full football games. Trevor Lawrence has been awful, and Justin Fields has had 1 good quarter this year. It happened to be in prime time, so we all anointed him. But it's just sorry to go off, but it blows my mind how no one seems to realize that all these rookie quarterbacks have struggled. Herbert's an outlier. All right, Mac Jones is on a good team with a Hall of Fame coach. You can't even compare the situations.
Yeah, no, that's why it is so important, right? And like the Jets hired the best, one of if not the best coaches on the market. They hired probably the most desirable, or one of the most desirable GM candidates, the most desirable offensive coordinator, and drafted really well-regarded prospects. I mean, people that I respect greatly were like, this Jets draft is legit. The Carl Lawson signing was going to be really good. it takes a long time to build a culture, and that's why it's so important that the Jets continue to start winning games. And this is why I'm really serious about this, that I don't care where the Jets pick, because they'll be able to get talent no matter what. This is a really deep edge class, it's a really deep receiver class, it's a really deep corner class, right? All positions of need. The Jets are not going to pick like 28th and 30th. They're going to pick at worst like 8 and 12. And they have those 2 second-round picks. The issue for me is Trevor Lawrence was heralded, by myself included, is I thought he was a better prospect than Andrew Luck, frankly. Like that, I put myself on the record. I was like, he is the best quarterback prospect I've personally seen since Peyton Manning. I'm only 27 years old. I thought that's a pretty, you should be able to overcome other stuff. The Jaguars don't have the worst weapons in the world. Yes, Travis Etienne got hurt, but he's been terrible. And you have Urban Meyer as your shield, and it's the Jags, so no one cares. But it's crazy to me that Zach Wilson, let's redraft all the quarterbacks in the 2021 class. 10 weeks in, went on November 22nd. That's good. Good coverage. But why is Trey Lance has barely played a snap and didn't look good at all? And it's no problem. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Trevor Lawrence, awful. Justin Fields has looked pretty awful as well. Has gotten hurt 3 or 4 times now. And Zach Wilson, it's Zach sucks. He's done. We have to go up and get Malik Willis next year. He's a bust. Okay, if Zach comes back and in the next 7 games goes 4 touchdowns, 9, 10 interceptions again, and ends up with 10 touchdowns, 18 interceptions, and 2,000 yards, I'm going to have a lot more pause. His leash is going to be shorter. It's going to be in that Tua, Daniel Jones scenario where you're really every snap is really kind of heralded. But again, other than Mac Jones, who he's done what he's needed to. I'm not going to get into the whole Mac Jones thing. I think he's at his ceiling. It is wild to me, the coverage around Zach, and I guess I shouldn't not expect it. I'm old enough to know this is what happens, but I'm really curious. There was Cowboy fans yesterday at the Jets game. Not sure why they were there, chanting "Jets suck," and I was like, dude, that's great. Your team plays a primetime game in 2 hours. You should probably go home and watch that football game. But yeah, no, I know, look, Sam's rookie year, and I just saw this. The end of Sam's rookie year was actually his beginning and the end of rookie year were really good. It was the middle part was a disaster. And that's why I think everyone that didn't love Sam as a prospect, kind of was able to hop on that. And we saw similar things in year 2. But look, I don't see there is no reason why you couldn't, shouldn't see good things from Zach, especially the next couple weeks. And there's no reason for me to not see positive stuff.
I totally agree. And, it's just, look, I don't know what Zach Wilson is, but I sure as hell am not saying that he's a bust because he's played 5 full football games. It's just, there has to be context with everything. And I understand Jet fans are passionate, but Trevor Lawrence has been awful. Justin Fields hasn't been good. Trey Lance wasn't good. You see Mac Jones, but ask yourself this, because maybe it's a hot take, maybe it's not. I think if you put any of these rookies in the New England system with McDaniels as your OC, Belichick as your head coach, a team that won 7 games despite poor quarterback play with Cam last year.
Elite defense. Elite.
Spent the most money in free agency, had a bunch of guys that opted out for COVID come back this year. It's not even comparable. If Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson or Justin Fields were with New England, I think they'd be able to be really productive. Give Mac Jones credit. He's been smart. He's taken what the defense has given him. But, it's not even a comparable situation. New England didn't move up in the draft. They were New England's running a 2009 Jets offense where it's they're not
just going to say the same thing.
It's the same thing. That's why it's it frustrates me that people are already just ripping Zach and I get it. It's New York. He's going to have to deal with it, but he's played 5 full games. Let's give the kid a chance. He inherited a team that won 2 football games last year. McCagnon and Izek the last decade have ruined this franchise. We got to give Douglas and Saleh and Zach Wilson time here. And I hate that I got to use the word patience again, but that's the reality of the situation because there's no quick fix for this ineptness that this organization has been.
It's interesting. A lot of the QB coaches I talk with, that train a lot of these guys, that they don't think rookies should play at all, if not until the second half of the year when they're ready. And it's, from a rookie QB perspective. And this year has probably been the best argument as to why they shouldn't play right away. I think that we got spoiled with, even Baker's rookie year. Obviously, Baker is in I think he's very similar to Mac Jones in a sense of they came in the most ready. Baker didn't play right away. Sam did. Josh Rosen didn't play right away. Josh Rosen obviously is not very good, although he's still in the league somehow, which is hilarious. And throwing picks on primetime. Him and Felipe Franks, another college bust. But, you look at these guys. Trevor Lawrence, again, one of the most pro-ready quarterbacks to ever come out of the draft, highest graded guy ever. Justin Fields, so much experience, so good. Zach Wilson, a ton of starts in college. And they still, probably could have benefited from if the Jets would have had a legitimate backup quarterback, if they had Flacco from, day one. I don't know how much the record's different, but Zach Wilson's maybe now coming into the fold in week 10 or week 11 and going to finish with 7 or 8 starts. And then you build on that. Again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just these guys who train these guys feel that way, to me, which is telling that, people are like, I don't know, the NFL is pretty damn hard. And especially smaller schools. Trey Lance is going to benefit so much from sitting under Kyle Shanahan and sitting back behind Jimmy G. And Jimmy G was a 2nd-round pick. I played him in college. He was not some bum, and had 50, 60 college starts, and he still sat. I know he sat behind Brady, but then when he had his time, he was ready to go. And yes, Jimmy G is limited, obviously. But my point is just it is okay for these guys to sit. And I think Zach Wilson's. Maybe I'm just being overly positive, and me and you are, have our Jets goggles on and whatever, but I think it will benefit Zach that he's got to sit back and go, okay, this is how I be a professional quarterback. This is how I work during the week. This is how teams are going to approach me and change from week to week. I can watch film, and I've seen the game now. I step back now. I can go back into it and feel it's a little slower. So those are the things I'd watch out for. Hopefully Zach can kind of portray starting 5 or 6 days here.
Totally agree. I pulled up Trevor Lawrence's numbers, by the way, just to get an accurate idea. 8 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. The team's 2-8. He's completing 58% of his passes. He's going through rookie struggles like all these guys do, but it doesn't get talked about because the Jaguars are the most irrelevant franchise, arguably, in the history of sports. The only time the Jacksonville Jaguars are in the news is when Urban Meyer is teaching a woman how to, quote, snap the football, if you know what I mean. Give me a break. So that's what I have to say about the Jacksonville Jaguars and that whole thing. Will, let's get you out of here on this. Obviously, you cover the Jets for turnonthejets.com. Your podcast is outstanding. Tell people about what you got coming on the podcast this week and what people can expect from your coverage.
I just was looking at the QBR numbers for the NFL. The worst ranked quarterbacks from 28 through 33. Sam Darnold, 28. Trevor Lawrence, 29. Davis Mills, 30. Zach Wilson, 31. Jared Goff, 32. And then 33, Justin Fields. So the worst rated quarterbacks in football are all of these rookies.
And Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and Sam Darnold in year 4, and Jared Goff. And Mac Jones, for as great as he's been, he could not be getting any better reviews, right? Everyone around the league is Mac Jones should have gone 2. He could have gone 1, all this stuff. He's still 20th in QBR, right? So, as great as he's been, amazing. Check down. He's still not even a top 20 quarterback by most of these advanced metrics. I know Sam's depressing. It's my biggest L as covering the NFL. I'll live with that one forever. You can find Turn on the Jets. Turnthejets.com, Turn the Jets, anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Apple, all those different things. Podcast Tuesdays. Jake's been on a few times. We have big guests every single week, or I have big guests every single week. Weekly articles, usually Wednesday, Thursday, and potentially sometimes Saturday, on analytics around the Jets. What to expect, some player features, things of that nature. John Jastrzemski from New York will be on today. He's a Dolphins fan, so that'll be an interesting one. Then we've got some other, big guests that I'll kind of leave out. Elijah Moore will be on the pod, in the off season, which is pretty exciting. So hopefully he continues to ball out and, helps grow there. And then Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, try to tweet as much as possible. Will, and then PA11. Catch me there. So appreciate you as always, Jake.
There you go. I asked that if you're watching the show and you like what you saw, you do me a favor. You like the video right down below. Also, hit the subscribe button. And a big shout out to our new sponsor for the show, Manscaped. So if you are looking for holiday gift, you need a, as the kids say, a ball trimmer, so to speak. Well, go to manscaped.com and use my promo code Asman. It's just my last name, ASMAN. You'll get 20% off the lawnmower. And look, the lawnmower 4.0, it's excellent. They sent me mine, and they sent it in the coolest box that, I guess I could say some of this on the air, but I don't know exactly. But check it out, manscaped.com. If you need a holiday gift, use promo code Asman and unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job. with Manscaped. I want to thank everyone who took time to watch today's video. Will, as always, man, let's hope it's a good week, and let's hope that I see a Jets victory in person on Sunday here in Houston.
Shout out to NY Jets FL asking you for a demo. Thanks as always, man.
There will not be a demo on the show. There will not be a demo. But I appreciate everyone who takes time to watch either live or after the fact. Let's have a good week. Jets and Texans coming up on Sunday. Have a good one, everyone.